Deuteronomy 6:1, 4 through 7, and 20 through 23. Now this is the commandment, the statutes and the ordinances that the Lord your God charged me to teach you to observe in the land that you are about to cross into and occupy. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. In the future, when your son asks you, "What is the meaning of the stipulations, decrees, and laws the Lord our God has commanded you?" tell him, "We were slaves of Pharaoh in Egypt, but the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand. Before our eyes, the Lord sent signs and wonders, great and terrible, on Egypt and Pharaoh and his whole household. But he brought us out from there to bring us in and give us the land he promised on oath to our ancestors."
Matthew 1:18 through 24. The mother of Jesus Christ was Mary, and this is how the birth of Jesus came about. Mary was engaged.
Once there was a woman named Mary and a man named Joseph. Mary loved Joseph, and Joseph loved Mary sometimes. They planned to get married. But then Mary became pregnant.
What? Seriously, God?
And that freaked Joseph out. But he didn't want others to judge Mary, so he planned to divorce her secretly. One night, Joseph got ready for bed. He brushed his teeth. He took off his hat, kicked off his shoes, stretched a little, said his prayers, and got into bed. While he was sleeping, an angel came. And said,
"Dude, your wife is pregnant. Don't worry too long, man. There's no other man. It's God's baby. So you should totally marry.
The baby in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will give birth to a son. You will name the son Jesus. Give him that name because he will save his people from their sins." All this happened to make clear the full meaning of what the Lord had said through the prophet. The virgin will be pregnant. She will have a son, and they will name him Emmanuel. This name means God is with us.
And then the angel left. Joseph woke up suddenly, thought about what the angel had said, and then pulled out a ring and said, "Marry me, Mary, and you'll never have to be alone. I love you, and that's all I really know."
The end.
Imagine Joseph finding out the news.
So imagine you are Joseph. What are you thinking when Mary says she's pregnant.
Who's the dad?
Imagine you're Joseph and you really love Mary. But then she comes and tells you that she's pregnant. How do you think you feel?
I feel mad for not telling me,
Okay.
and also kind of happy.
'Cause?
We're getting a baby.
What do you say to her?
Why would you not tell me? But I'm also kind of happy.
How is he feeling?
Like maybe frustrated and like disappointed and probably sad because he wanted to marry her and confused.
Okay, now imagine you're Mary and you love Joseph so much and you want him to still marry you. And you find out that you're pregnant with the Holy Spirit's baby. How do you feel?
Sorry,
What else?
but I wanted a baby.
Yeah. So you kind of feel excited too?
Have you ever had a dream that when you woke up, you did what your dream said to do?
Yes, that happens all the time. Well, like sometimes it's just like snippets of my day. Like I'll put a paper away and somebody says something like, and it's the same as in my dream. Or once my dream, it like I was trying because I lost my wallet and I couldn't find it. And then in my dream, it said it was like on a big pile of stuff in our laundry room, and I looked and it was there.
Imagine you're Joseph and you're sleeping and an angel comes and starts chatting with you.
Whoa! Are you an angel?
Yes, I am. Do this thing that I told you to do.
Okay.
Do you believe it's really an angel if you're having a dream, like it's real?
No.
Do you imagine if you were to have a dream, would you wake up and do what you were told in your dream?
Mm-hmm.
You would?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter what they said in your dream, you would just go and do it?
Sure.
I'm an angel from the Lord. I desire you to wash the dishes when you wake up.
Okay.
Pretend you're Joseph.
Telling
So
you.
I just told you I'm pregnant. Then the angel came to you in a dream. Now you're coming back to my house.
Mary, will you marry me? Meow.
So this is Joseph praying, and then the angel, the Mary saying I have a baby, and that's basically it.
I drew an angel
Yeah?
talking to Joseph, and Joseph waking up in his bed, scared.
That's how we imagined it.
Thank you, bakers. Well, if you are a hug person, I wonder if maybe at some point in your life you felt a little jealous of Joseph and Mary. After all, I think we can safely assume that they got to experience what it is like to physically wrap their arms around Jesus and pull him in really, really tight, all while Jesus, we presume, wrapped them up even more warmly and pulled them in even more tightly. Are there any hug people out there experiencing any hug envy, as I described that? Well, when I was thinking about that this week, it struck me that actually Joseph kind of passed up his first opportunity to embrace Jesus. Mary, little Jesus sprouting inside her, finds out she's pregnant, and Joseph, we're told, starts planning to dismiss her. But then God sends an angel to Joseph to give him another chance. Now, God could chastise Joseph for rejecting Mary and Jesus, but God's message is actually pretty kind. Don't be afraid, God tells Joseph through the angel. Here's what's going on. Embrace it. And so, having received that message from God, having received really what was God's warm embrace, Joseph goes back out and embraces Mary. Which is to say that also, in a way, for the very first time, Joseph kind of embraces Jesus. Now, for us today, wherever we're at on the hug spectrum, from the stiff with the arms at our side to the Marcy level, I wonder if we might be a little like Joseph sometimes at this very early stage in the story. Jesus isn't there in the flesh for us to embrace as we would someone else, but perhaps we could be embracing Jesus more than we know when we offer or receive a safe and loving embrace from others around us, including when things get hard. After all, Jesus himself pointed in exactly this kind of direction when he grew up and said, "Truly, I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these who are members of my family, you did it to me." And of course, as we see from Jesus' teaching in that same passage, embracing others doesn't only mean that we hug them, because although I do hope that this sermon will encourage you to remember the emotional, physical, and especially spiritual value of actual hugs, we also embrace people by feeding them, by giving them something to drink, by welcoming them, by clothing them, by caring for them when they are sick, by visiting them. We embrace people by caring for their needs, and quite simply, just by accepting them. But those things can be hard to do sometimes, right? We're busy. Other people can be messy. Sometimes they even say the most ridiculous things as ridiculous as, say, in this story, "Guess what? I'm pregnant, fiance, but it's not from you, but don't worry about it." I'm sure we've all had times when someone we loved has said something that we worry we can't trust. When it comes to embracing others, there are plenty of times when we all feel like Joseph. But even when you feel like Joseph, reluctant to embrace others, fear not. God had a way of getting to Joseph. God has a way of getting to all of us. And it can work like this. God helps us to embrace God and others by embracing us first. Through an angel, God embraced Joseph with an encouraging and clarifying message. And then afterwards, Joseph was inspired to go back and embrace Mary, which also, I'll remind you, meant embracing Jesus. God helps us to embrace God and others by embracing us first. It's a truth that we don't just find in this Christmas story. We can find it all the way back when God's people are on the verge of entering the promised land. In the book of Deuteronomy, where Moses tells God's people what he thinks are the most important things they should know before they go in, Moses, who has much to say in Deuteronomy, says what I think is what is the most important thing of all. Every biblical expert I've seen agrees, including, by the way, Jesus, that his core message was this: love God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. In other words, wrap yourself around God in the biggest heart and soul and might hug you could ever imagine. In other words, embrace God. But just as God recognized that Joseph might need some questions answered before embracing Mary, Moses acknowledges that his audience likely has some questions too. What should you tell your kids about why we should embrace God like that, Moses asks for them and for us. Tell them, Moses says, that we do it because God brought us out of Egypt. Tell them that God brought us out of Egypt, and here I love the wording of our translation because of the way it sounds like an embrace to us today. God brought us out of Egypt in order to bring us in. In other words, we embrace God because God embraced us first. We have a reason, and we find the strength to embrace God because God brings us in. Because God embraced us first. God's embrace inspired Joseph to embrace Mary. God's embrace of the enslaved Israelites brought them to the place where they could embrace God back. And, of course, our response to God's embrace isn't just to wrap our heart, soul, and strength around God. As Jesus later added, do all that, and then love your neighbor as yourself. Which, again, is to say that there is an essential biblical link between embracing God and embracing the actual in-the-flesh people all around us. But even with all that said, I don't blame you if you've still got some questions. Questions like, if God's embrace is what strengthens and inspires us to embrace God and others, how do I even receive that embrace? Are there some massive motherly arms that reach down through the clouds every morning, but I'm just sleeping in too long to notice? Do I just need to make sure I'm home at the right time so I can be there when Jesus barges in like the Kool-Aid man, arms outstretched and bellowing, "Come here, bring it in"? Or should I at least be waiting for Joseph's angel to come to me? As wonderful as each of those things would be, I don't think we need to wait for them. Because just as God is in other people, God's embrace, I believe, is already in us. How do I feel it? Well, there must be lots of ways to feel it, but in case it might help you as it's helped me, here's how I know it and feel it. And it starts with noticing things that are already there, but that I don't usually notice unless I'm really paying attention. Consider this. Receiving a hug, they say, and they've truly studied these things, relaxes our bodies, relieves anxieties, improves our ability to pay attention, even helps us to sleep better, just overall improves our physical health, and according to some research, we have reason to believe that it might even actually be able to remove some physical pain. Hugging makes us emotionally and physically healthier people. And it reduces so many of the things that can make us self-centered, while increasing those things that make us more likely to be generous, or to say, to embrace others. I mean, I think we all know that a hug makes us feel physically warm, and that when two people in a safe and loving relationship hug each other, they also feel good about each other. But did you know that it had all of that potential too? But now, here's the part about how I feel God's hug. Did you know what can also happen when we, even when we're by ourselves, simply pay attention to our bodies? There's an exercise called the body scan that I think some of you probably know about, where a person sits comfortably, calms their mind, relaxes their body, and begins mentally focusing all their attention to each part of their body in turn. Maybe starting at their toes and then moving through every part of their body and extremity till they're at the top of their heads, paying attention to each part of their body and simply being mindful of the sensations they find in each part. If they find any pain or tension, they can gently imagine it evaporating, but that's not really the whole point. It's simply about attending to the sensations in every part of their body. Sensations that few if any of us notice as we hurry about our regular lives. Here's the really interesting part. What happens when we pay attention to the sensations that already exist in our body? Well, stop me if this sounds familiar. It relaxes our bodies. It relieves our anxieties. It improves our ability to pay attention. It even helps us to sleep better. And it improves our physical health. It's even been shown to reduce physical pain. Giving mindful attention to our bodies makes us emotionally and physically healthier people. And it reduces so many of the things that can make us self-centered, while increasing things that make us far more likely to be generous, to embrace others. Sound like anything else I've just described, except this time there's no visible other person in the room? Now, I'm not going to claim to know this research inside and out or to have learned it from anything more authoritative than a book I've started reading and a few online articles. And I'm not suggesting that if you line up the benefits of hugging beside the benefits of a body scan, the two columns look identical. But what I still find mesmerizing is that there is so much of a hug already built into our bodies if we take the time to notice it. What I find myself asking, lighting up at the possibility of, is, might it be that anytime we stop to pay attention to the energy in our bodies, we may be able to sense God's constant embrace of us, humming in our very nerves and tissues, perhaps even massaging the parts of us where our stress has built up, and equipping us to get out there and embrace others, which once again is also to embrace God back. Might paying attention to the sensations of our bodies be one way of remembering that God is holding us warmly every moment of every day? Perhaps you might say it's like God is always there, cradling us in one big and constant hug. All we need to do is tune our bodies to the right frequency to notice it. Of course, to be clear, I don't say this to limit your experience of God's embrace to just that exercise. If you're dealing, for example, with chronic pain, maybe you find or could find it helpful to do a body scan. Maybe it could help you to feel God in your body when your body otherwise feels far from God's touch. But also maybe you're in so much pain that it feels like you could never find God in your physical sensations. If so, hold this body scan example lightly. God, I truly believe, finds ways to embrace us that are well beyond my imagination. What works for me may not be what works for you. So beyond this specific way I notice God's embrace in my life, I simply want to share that by daring to imagine that God can embrace me, I have found one way in which I'm sensing that embrace. And it makes me hope that you too can truly feel God's embrace in your life too, however it feels or looks for you. Because however it is that you experience God's embrace or could experience God's embrace this Advent, I dare you, I invite you to lean in, to let God bring you in. Like God's people while they were trapped in captivity. Like Joseph when his most important relationship was strained. May you feel God bringing you in so that you may in turn embrace others. Others who, like Mary with Joseph, just might be giving you the chance to embrace Jesus too.